Good evening, you're watching Left, Right and Centre. I'm Nidhi Razdan. Tonight, the big story, the bloodbath at the stock markets. The Sensex seeing its biggest crash since 2009 as fears grow over the state of China's economy. Is the panic justified and what can India do? Also tonight, the Centre tells the Supreme Court that political parties should not come under the Right to Information Act. Are they running away from transparency? We'll come to that debate in about 30 minutes from now. But first, it's over to my colleague Shweta Rajpal Kohli, who will take you through the big stock market crash.
Absolutely, Nidhi. Fear and panic has gripped global financial markets with a lot of concerns over the health of China's economies. The worries are clearly impacting the global economy. China's stocks crashed today, but with it, other markets went down as well. The Wall Street seeing the worst day in over 6 years. We expect the finance minister to address the media shortly. But first, let's take a look at the developments of the day. A black Monday on the Wall Street as stock markets saw a complete free fall. First, China's stocks plunged 8% as panic over the health of China's economy intensified, causing a meltdown across the globe and a complete bloodbath on the Wall Street as well. Sensex opened about 1,000 points lower, then crashed further through the day to close over 1,600 points down, the worst percentage fall since 2009. Over 7 lakh crores of investor wealth wiped out in a single day. The rupee that has been rattled due to China's devaluing its own currency also tanked further, going past the 66 to the dollar mark.
Slowly, while a number
the RBI governor tried to calm rattled investors, saying India is in a better shape now than in 2013.
Now, many of you are watching markets this morning worried about the continued volatility from last week. While I don't want to opine on the future direction of markets, I will say that relative to other countries, India is in a good position.
Indian fundamentals, according to Reserve Bank of India governor, may not be that bad to show this plunge in your Sensex. But Indian fundamentals are no good to prevent you from experiencing such a plunge either.
The opposition blamed the government for the stock market fall. But the finance minister deflected the blame, saying the government is pressing ahead with reform.
रुपी अब वेंटिलेटर में तो आ चुका है, वेंटिलेटर में, और हर तरह का इमरजेंसी प्रोसीजर की आवश्यकता पड़ रही है.
Now the factors responsible for this are entirely external. There is not a single domestic factor in India which has either contributed to it or has added to it.
The crash in global oil prices has put India in a sweet spot, but the global rout, coupled with concern over the slow pace of reform, will keep markets jittery in the days ahead. NDTV Bureau Report.
Let me now go across to our special guest joining us on the show today. Should India be panicking about the kind of developments taking place around the world? That's the question we're asking. Sachin Pilot, President, Rajasthan Congress. Surjit Bhalla, MD, Oxus Fund Management joins us. Abhay Aima, Director, HDFC Securities. And with me here in the studio, PN Vijay, BJP spokesperson, and MK Venu, Senior Journalist. Thank you all, gentlemen, for being with us here on the show. If I could first go across to Surjit Bhalla to get him to explain to our viewers what exactly is happening around the globe. Dr. Bhalla, globally stocks are tanking, but what we saw in India today was complete mayhem. This at a time when we were told the fundamentals of the Indian economy were strong.
Well, I'm glad you said that I would explain. I think I'm as much in the dark as most people, but let me break this up into 2 or 3 components. First, what is the cause of this? Is it the Indian economy not performing? Has it anything to do with India? The short answer is absolutely no. The Indian economy is recovering. The Indian economy has inflation down to if you will, 10-year lows, and has the growth rate steadily inching up. there's nothing in the Indian economy that suggests there should be this bloodbath. What is happening in the external economy? Well, you have the US doing reasonably well. You have Europe doing reasonably well compared to its own past, and you have Japan doing reasonably well. There's one place on this planet that is not doing reasonably well, and that is China. China had a growth rate of something like 11% 2 years ago, and today it's close to 6%. So therefore, the market has been trying to adjust to the reality of China growing at 5, 6, 7% versus growing at 9, 10, 11. And in my opinion, that is all there is to it. Once the market adjusts to this reality, and one could say that it should have adjusted by now,
right.
Maybe this is a process of adjustment, but really that is the entire explanation, in my view, for what is going on.
All right, so Jeet Bhalla, let me take that forward to Sachin Pilot, because Sachin, we had the Congress today turn around and pin the blame of today's crash on the current government. Now, you just heard Surjit Bhalla say that this has got nothing to do with what's happening in India. It's all driven by external factors, by global factors. So why is it that the Congress is blaming the Modi government for this crash?
Well, I regard Dr. Bhalla in very high esteem, but I don't think a 7 lakh crore wipeout in a day is any adjustment. I think external factors are there, but there are nothing new. You see, what was just pointed out by Mr. Bhalla is that the economy's revival, the global economic scenario, the economic architecture hasn't changed since last night. There are certain fundamentals. Being strong is one thing, but does it prevent the confidence that people have in the Indian market? This kind of a washout, the biggest drop in last 7-8 years. So it's something to worry about. I don't think the government could have prevented it, but I think if the government had done enough in the last 2 quarters to kind of adjust fiscally what was coming in, we may not have had such a huge loss.
Okay.
The rupee is getting weaker. The government's very lucky that the oil prices are at historic lows. All those things haven't really added to giving people the confidence in the economy to keep their money in. So I don't think it's quite okay to say that all external, nothing internal. The governments certainly keep a tight watch on the market, and this lack of confidence perhaps also has made the drop today in the market so large.
All right, perhaps a balanced view there coming from Sachin Pilot, where he's saying that yes, it is to do with external factors. It's clearly China pulling down the rest of the world. But you know what? If the government had done enough to instill confidence, we may not have seen such a big crash. Today China crashed over 8%, but India crashed over 6% as well. PN Vijay, my question to you really is, in many ways, the Modi government was the darling of stock markets, was the darling of corporate India. Okay, he says still is, but we will come to that in a bit. Just hear out my question. The kind of euphoria that we saw last year in May when this government came to power, we got an absolute stupendous welcome from the stock markets, from corporate India. Today it's the same corporate India, it's the same stock markets that are questioning whether things are happening on the ground. And my question to you here is that perhaps stock markets reflecting largely today what happened externally, but also a bit of loss of confidence on the domestic front. What's happening really? Why aren't we seeing reforms being pushed through? Monsoon session being a complete washout. So would you agree with what Sachin Pilot is saying, that yes, we would have seen a crash, but not as much as what we saw today had the domestic factors been in our favor?
Well, let me put it this way. What happened today, nothing that happened in Parliament could have prevented it, because in stock market parlance, it's something called a risk aversion creeping in. And then the market technicals like margin calls and currency, I mean, it's very complicated because all markets are linked together. So what happened? Having said that, I was talking to a broker in Bombay, and he said, Vijay Saab, just because the Chinese are crying, it doesn't mean I can cry less. What he meant was, I mean, the whole world is crying, all right. The Chinese have crashed 40% since 2015 beginning, but that doesn't make my pain less. So as a government, obviously, while we do recognize that the reasons for this fall may be overseas, as Sujit was saying, the Chinese demand slump, etc., the commodity slump, we have to find a solution to get investors back into the market. So the challenge today is, the scenario being what it is, what do we do? And I think the thing to do is not to touch the stock market. The Chinese tried that in the end of June. They
Right.
pumped in something like 30,000 crores. They didn't work out. We have to stabilize the currency markets.
Okay.
And from that
But
point of view, I think
my pointed question to you, PN Vijay, was that yes, today was all to do with China, external, global markets crashing, it's happening around the world, but were some domestic factors at play or not? Quick question.
No. As far as today's Dalal Street turning from 9:15 to 3:30.
Not just today, but overall what we're seeing in the stock market.
Nothing that happened today would have changed whether Modi had taken the growth rate up to 8 or 8.5%. Anybody who says that doesn't know stock markets.
Abhay, if I could bring you in, you understand stock markets better than most people do. Your overall view, yes, while we agree that this is a development around the world, but the question we're asking right now is how resilient are the Indian markets? How resilient is the Indian economy? Because this is a real test case of any government or of any central bank. When you have a crisis like this, do we have the resilience to ride through the storm? Can we ride through the current global financial crisis? Will India be able to weather this current storm, or domestically also there are issues that are cropping up?
Nidhi, actually I'm surprised that both Mr. Pilot, whom I consider to be one of the more sensible politicians, to taken the line that he has taken, because I think he understands finance better than most politicians do. So you don't have to play politics on a day like this. I'm even surprised that Mr. Vijay, who is the BJP spokesman, why is he being defensive at all? Because anyone who has anything to do with the markets will tell you what happened today in terms of a global meltdown had nothing to do with domestic policies. I mean, if you look at the overseas figures that will come out, if you look at the hedge funds operating, there is absolutely no way on earth that anyone can stop something like this. And relatively speaking, both in terms of currency, if someone did their homework properly, and in terms of the percentage fall, the Indian markets have relatively done pretty well. You cannot stop when the carnage is happening worldwide. You cannot turn around and say, look, just because Mr. Modi would do X, Y, and Z, this would not happen. I mean, that is the stupidest argument I've heard in the short term. But yes, over a long period of time, I would accept the fact that there has been some amount of disappointment as far as the euphoria connected and the investments go, but that's a different story altogether. That's a story that bills are not being passed on.
Has that story also been playing out on the stock markets? And the question really is, how quickly do we recover here on?
No, it has played out on the stock market, but that is a part of nothing to do with what happened today.
Okay.
I mean, that story played out, I think, a month back.
Right, MK Venu, now we need to move forward and see what happens next, because in many ways what we've seen happen today is understandable. There is a carnage across global stock markets, whether it is Wall Street, whether it is China, Asian markets, European markets, they plummeted around the world. But really the test here on will be how quickly do policymakers react to a crisis like this. Is this what we are seeing happen, a repeat of 2008? Will China take the world economy down with it? How bad is the situation with China, and the response of Indian policymakers? MK Venu, share with us why you believe that the response here on will be very, very critical. How? You know, today we heard the RBI governor, today we heard Finance Minister Arun Jaitley, but nothing was calming the nervous markets.
See, it's true that what happened today has nothing to do with India's domestic policy. But Shweta, this has been coming for the last 4-5 months. There were telltale signs, China slowing down and the impact of Chinese overcapacity, getting the spillover of Chinese overcapacity, getting dumped into Asian economies which are dependent. Singapore is in recession. Last quarter, Singapore is actually a bellwether, is -4%. South Korea is nearly 0% growth. Even Japan, second quarter, is actually the economy shrank, and that's why it's the third largest oil consumer. So the point I'm making is the impact of China slowing by about 2 percentage points, possibles even now, will cause a recession around. And I think our policymakers in the last 3 months or 4 months were not very alive to this. And Shweta, you see how your Vedanta CEO said that they've shut down one aluminium plant because aluminium industry here is working at only 50% capacity. And the commodities which are globally traded are in recession in India. Steel is in recession. Steel industry owes $50 billion to banks. So there is a problem. There is a huge problem of overcapacity in commodities in India, and there's been a wealth destruction because commodity is also an asset class.
Stay with that commodities thought.
So I have not heard any comprehensive statement coming from the government in the last 3-4 months saying that, well, this is what is happening in China and this is how we are going to, maybe we will focus on non-tradables like infrastructure, etc. in a comprehensive way articulating this view. And all we have heard is sometimes Mr. Jaitley saying, well, FDI and retail, there is a policy, but our party has a different view. No, you cannot talk like this anymore.